The Carolina Hurricanes hosted the Stadium Series for the first time and came away with a big win. Jared Ellis of Locked On Hurricanes is here to discuss that and what we can expect from the Canes as the trade deadline approaches. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Saturday was a big day for the Carolina Hurricanes. They hosted the Washington Capitals in the Stadium Series, big outdoor game, and they skate away with a victory. Jared Ellis of Locked On Hurricanes joins us to talk about that, and you were at the game. Jared, let's start with this. What was the experience like at the outdoor game down in Carolina?
It was unreal, Gil. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I mean, you can kind of hear my voice is still a little hoarse from all the cheering. But, yeah, it's from being a, lifelong fan. I posted on Twitter last night. I went with my dad, and, our first game together, it was, back in, 2001, and it was PNC Arena was still called the Raleigh and Entertainment Sports Arena before it even was called RBC Center. And then our last game together was at Carter Finley Stadium. Went to the inaugural season when they're still in Greensboro. Went to their first playoff series back in '99 against Boston. I was talking to him. He said, he never would have thought in a million years. Obviously, back then they didn't do the outdoor stuff, but even 10 years ago it was move the team to Quebec, relocate them, no fans, all that stuff. And back then probably would have agreed with you, but it is crazy just how far this team has come. And in their 25th season here in Raleigh, it's perfect. And then the fact that they were able to beat the brakes off the Capitals, that was always really fun. Me and my dad were talking about that 10 years ago. It had been the opposite way around. Capitals would have been the one beating the brakes off the Hurricanes. It was unreal from a fan perspective, and it was once in a lifetime.
Talk to me about the atmosphere inside the stadium. What was it like, and how was it different from a typical Hurricanes game?
Well, it was a bit colder, first and foremost. But there's definitely a lot, to take. It was a lot to take in, and the NHL, they really went for the college football feel with it, and they definitely hit the mark on some of the stuff. Down on the floor near the stage for the music performances. They had students from NC State down there on the floor. That was really cool. They obviously had Mr. and Mrs. Wolf there. And then they had the NC State band there. That was really, really cool. And I like that they didn't shy away from the fact that that's where it was. It was in a college football stadium. And I will say, the league, I think they dropped the ball a bit with the parking situation. They kept wanting to say, they're going for college football, which is great. But even for a normal Hurricane Saturday game, people are getting there at 10 a.m. and they weren't opening the parking lots till 2 in the afternoon. So I do feel they dropped the ball on that a bit. It would have helped, get some people in there sooner. They weren't having to sit in traffic as long. I mean, it was 57,000 people. That's quite a bit of folks packing in there. But, at least it wasn't like the one at the Air Force Academy a few years ago when people were getting seated in the third period. least it wasn't like that. Everyone was eventually able to make it in, and yeah, it was a really fun experience for sure. And even when after we were finally able to get in, but we got in with plenty of time. We were able to enjoy some tailgating and everything.
How much more meaningful or enjoyable was it beating a division rival like the Capitals?
Oh, it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome to beat the Capitals. Like I said, 10 years ago, it was the other way around. It was the Capitals beating up on the Hurricanes, and for the Hurricanes to be the one hosting the game and just handling their rivals so handedly in that game, especially how the rivalry was really heated up over the past few years. Yeah, it was awesome. And I actually with that, now that I think about it, that was the Capitals' first loss in an outdoor game ever. And yeah, that was really, really cool to beat the Capitals in that game.
Hurricanes have now won 9 of their last 10, 3 in a
Mhm.
row, on a roll, first place in the Metropolitan Division. Trade deadline is less than 2 weeks away. What, if anything, do you see Carolina looking to do as we get closer to that big day?
Yeah, so it's crazy to think about that the trade deadline is that close. Time is flying by. But I feel like the Hurricanes they're gonna try to make a splash. With Pacioretty going down because he, like we've talked about before, he would have essentially been the trade deadline acquisition with the time frame of him coming back. So a lot of the moves that I thought they would have been made by other teams. Uh, with Tarasenko going to New York, um, Horvat also going to the other New York team, and then yesterday, shortly, or was it yesterday or the day before? Ryan
Friday night.
O'Reilly
Yeah.
getting traded to Toronto. I didn't think that was higher on the possibility list, but with all the trade speculation, the Hurricanes wanting to make a splash, you figure their name is in there. And really, the only two left on the board that I could see them making moves for, one I would like, one I would not. Patrick Kane, don't really want that just because he's well past his best playing days. 10 years ago would have been a different story, of wanting him, but he's past his prime. And, with his hip injury, and it's one of those that it's what, like a 9 million cap hit, and it's the final year of his deal, so 9 million for a rental, it's a bit steep, and especially a rental like that that's well past his prime. Free agency, I could, if they could get him on a cheap deal, I could see it again. Wouldn't be one I'd really want, but I could see it making a bit more sense there. But really the only one I would really want now that's left would be Timo Meyer. I think he fits the bill what the Hurricanes are wanting. And I've seen Seth Jarvis been involved in some trade talks. Don't want that at all. He's an absolute stud that can carry this franchise for years and for a decade plus. And so I don't want that. But I've seen some where it's, like a San Jose would want like a top level prospect, some B level prospects, picks. I do think they could do that. A name that I think really makes sense in the trade, I don't think some people would like it, would be Ryan Suzuki. I don't see that. I can see that making some people mad, but at the end of the day, at this point, I don't see him starting to pan out with the Hurricanes and in their system. I think it can be about time for a change of scenery. And I know it's not all his fault with injuries piling up for him, but it feels, at the end of the day, let's kind of move on from here. Wish him the best in his future endeavors, and really make a splash at the deadline. This is a team that it can compete for a Stanley Cup right now. They don't necessarily have to go out and make a blockbuster trade or anything like that. They could absolutely get the job done as is, as we've been seeing. They can get the job done, but it feels like so often over these past couple years, they're that one guy away. Definitely could have been Pacioretty for sure, but that's off the table. Timo Meier fits the bill of what they need.
We'll see if they can go out and get him. Like I said, a little less than 2 weeks to go. Should be interesting. Jared, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and how they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find the podcast wherever you find this podcast, where you find Locked On Islanders. Yeah, it's going to be there along with all your other favorite Locked On podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Music, all of it's going to be there. Also on YouTube at Locked On Hurricanes. And you can find me on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And you never know, Gil, with the trade deadline coming up, by the time this goes out, Hurricanes may have already went and got Timo Meier.
Well, if that's the case, we'll be back to talk about that sooner than you think. Jared, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Our next partner has a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted one supplement that would take care of all my nutritional needs. So what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. And it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.